with another video. In this one, please mind I'm lowering my voice a little bit just because I live in a residential environment or with in close proximity with other neighbors. So I have to mind my voice at this hour. But I felt inspired to create a video that is it's daring, it's abstract, but I think it can be brought back to songwriting at a certain point. But I wanted to talk about just some of the gravity of our words as songwriters, and some of the realities of just some ways of thinking about music and sound that might be deep, but they do have a bearing on how we choose to express ourselves and present ourselves in a creative and reverberating experience that we all exist within. One thing that's interesting is that I'm not going to discuss what I do for work, but I had an experience once where the piece of equipment that I use for work has an identification on it that is interchangeable with my call sign in the role that I play. And it just so happens that my piece of equipment had the identification that another colleague's call sign also had. So I actually, while waiting to begin an assignment, I was approached by someone in authority and experienced the initial stages of a reprimanding and review based upon statements and mistakes that a colleague had made. But this person, a person of power and authority, was engaging and seriously considering my performance based on a misinterpretation, just simply purely based on numbers, based on a misidentification of my piece of equipment and my call sign. And I thought that there was something very unique in that you know, this this current mode of reality that we live in as human beings is there's a heavy emphasis on numerals, on numbers, because numbers are very efficient at organizing, and numbers are maybe one of the most efficient and effective means of discriminating, both and there's positive effects from that, and there's also I think there are certain detriments that come with numbers. One of them is that a lot of our the author that I mentioned in my previous video, author Avalon, who speaks about spiritual insights. In one of his books, he mentions that where there's no mind, there's no limitation. And what I interpret that as is that when we undertake different things, when we do things when we do things based on intrinsic value and intrinsic experience, we're not limited the same way. We're not limited until we choose to reflect on and scrutinize our experience rather than purely experiencing that. And I think that sometimes when we incorporate numbers, like numbers are around us in so many ways, and they categorize us and they stigmatize us in many scenarios, and they also limit us in both the way that other people view us with respect to those numbers, and also the way that we learn to view ourselves based on the numbers that are applied to us. But about this reprimanding that I experienced, it made me think, I don't want to be flippant or cavalier about speaking about spiritual matters or anything related to dogma or holy names or texts. But we as humans, it's our prerogative to reflect and reason. And I think that sometimes we can discover certain realities that are maybe beyond our rank and station simply by using reason. So another thing that I encourage all songwriters to do as human beings and as artists is to ask questions to yourself, because I think that you can decipher insights, and you can understand people, scenarios, and contexts slash problems um, very effectively if you can get in the habit of asking yourself questions and reflecting upon those questions. And one of the questions that I want to put forward is that, you know, in things like in things that are very powerful in our society, like institutions or machinery, or whether those are being used for in a to benefit people or to as a detriment to people. I think a lot of things that are very powerful do not things that are powerful do not view things in the same context that we do. Meaning that if some like the if we're just talking about like the system, like say it's a school system or the justice system, these very powerful systems and agents acting within those systems with titles, or just basically persons with authority and say so within a different system, when they look at us as participants or subjects of a system, they're not looking at us in terms of our personality, our appearance, necessarily our different personal attributes. They're strictly looking at us in terms of numbers. And then they're responding to us in terms of numbers, and they're handling us in very efficient, organized, and powerful ways with regard to those numbers fundamentally and primarily. So what I wanted to suggest is, you know, different people talk about having a creator of this universe or of this reality that we experience. Whatever your background and beliefs are, I respect that, and I stand down from contending with anything that you've experienced and what you believe. What I offer myself is that in reflecting upon what if there was something that was an intelligent causal agent in this reality, something that is either inspiring or managing this reality in a profound and impactful way that surpasses what we can ordinarily achieve or understand as our limited centers of consciousness that we are as human beings. How would that locus of agency view itself and us who are inhabiting this reality that it impacts? And I think that one thing is that another thing that author Avon said is that when a creative intelligence that is capable of inspiring and organizing something as beautiful, profound, and complex as the reality we inhabit looks out at something, it views that as an extension of itself, and thereby it has the inspiration and the singular power to impact cause to impact the cause of that thing on a fundamental level. So how would that locus of agency view itself and others, and which are also itself? And I think that what it would do, now I think that numbers, as I started with, are arbitrary because they're the numbers that we use in the West are, my understanding is, are based on the Hindu Arabic numeral system, based on the number 10 because we have 10 fingers. And our 10 fingers represent the symmetry within nature, because there's a lot of symmetry within nature, but proper and fixed numbers do not exist in nature as far as I understand. So I don't think that such an locus of agency would view things in terms of numbers because numbers are human and arbitrary. But I think that what it may view is tensions and propensities, because I think that many things around us can be reduced to a, a combination of tension and also propensity within those tensions that amount to behaviors in actions and things like this. So what I wanted to say is that, if I were to say to you, I can speak through a wall and I can be heard by someone 10 miles away, you would probably think that I'm facing that I'm mentally compromised and challenged. But if I pull out a radio and I do that very thing that I just said, you wouldn't look at it as you wouldn't look at me as as being mentally challenged. But I actually did just talk through a wall and be understood intelligently by someone 10 miles away. So I said that to say that what we see as walls, our voice in space and time, can be reduced to a different a different a different viewpoint that doesn't that transcends our the limitations of our mind, such as the obstacle of a wall or of distance. So I just wanted to say that I think that was just some inspiration I had as far as talking about how things can sometimes we can touch upon a higher way of thinking simply just by using our reasoning. And but back to the tensions and propensities, a a musical instrument like a guitar is built with tensions on it, and those tensions exist before we pluck a note, and once we pluck a note, we're revealed through our will and intelligence. We're revealing a tension that already preceded our invoking of that sound. So the author Arthur Avalon, in again who I'm referencing, in one of his books, he says that when a sound or when a first he says a sound, but he also goes into words. When at the utterance of a sound, that sound was not created at the moment that it was uttered. It was revealed through different tensions and circumstances. It was revealed, but on some level it already existed before it manifested. And I think that I'm not gonna compromise my I'm not gonna I'm not going to compromise my credibility by speaking on spiritual matters that I don't understand. But I do think that there's something to be said for both music and words, that we can reason that on some level these propensities existed before they manifested. And I think the same. He goes on to say that the same are true with words, like the the words that we choose to employ when we're speaking. Like if you were to call me a man wearing a white shirt, um, the conditions that led to me being a male, the shirt that I have on, the color of that shirt, your education in learning what the words a man in white shirt mean, um, all those and the propensities and the ability to enunciate those words, all of that existed before you chose to speak the words a man wearing a white shirt. So I just wanted to that's just a a small example of some of the really profound realities about both sound and words that we don't I don't think we normally reflect on, but these are real and almost kind of um, complex realities that exist, and some of the implication of these realities can come out when we are publicly or even internally expressing ourselves and expressing ideas. So I just wanted to put that out there as food for thought. And then another thing on that, and this is, and I hope if you'll be patient, lenient enough to bear with me, this comes back around to songwriting. Um, uh, we're, when a person is, if anyone out there listening to this has undertook anything that involves bearing great weight, distance, or skill over a prolonged period, whether that's a skill that you developed or something you did challenging with your physical body, or with anything involving weight and forces, you can appreciate the importance of the dynamics of stance and mechanics. It's a pivotal and crucial in anything arduous and that is prolonged over a distance. And I wanted to say that when we are leading our lives, like when we are whether we're conducting ourselves professionally, whether we're in interpersonal relationships that we choose or that transpire in our lives, or even when we're our internal speech, one of the most fundamental stances that we take as human beings is our our choices in speech, because the way we choose to speak, it forms a habit. Speaking is very habitual. Our phrases, our intonations, our ideas are very habitual, and anything that is habitual garners a momentum and a force that can rival, challenge, and even compromise our conscious free will. I'm not. I wouldn't be so bold as to say anything can compromise our free will, because a lot of people, including myself, believe that our free will is innate and preordained. But I'm saying that whatever is habitual can present a force that whether positive or negative in our lives, that is to be reckoned with. And I've heard it said, I can't quote the source, but if you look at certain social maladies, such as domestic violence, different substance abuse, violence in general, many things that hurt us. A lot of them can be not caused necessarily, but they're correlated to speech patterns, where you can observe that if a person chooses to employ strong language habitually, that can start to have outcomes and realities in their life that they didn't necessarily, that wouldn't on the surface be correlated to our the way that we're speaking. But I think there are, and I should probably do better diligence to find the studies, but I believe there are studies that have proved that the way we speak can impact realities in our life. So I wanted to say that as an artist, you if you're using any words or any language, then you're within the field of writing, and a lot of principles of writing, both they overlap between prose, which is like regular or not necessarily create artistic writing for the sake of artistry, and also artistic writing, like creative writing or musical writing. These are interwoven and interconnected with certain principles. And I wanted to say that if you there's two things I wanted to say, or there's about three things I wanted to say about profanity, which is that there's a artist. I'm sorry. There's a content creator on YouTube called, I think his name is New Breed Global Truth, and he has a video. If I can find it, I'm gonna list it in the description, where he enunciates the distinction between between cuss words and curse words. Now, a lot of four-letter words, they're very they're emotionally charged, and they also invoke the the momentum or the energy of all the times we've heard that word used in our life, and even all the times other people who have used that word in our life have heard that word used in their life, and that has a certain momentum that is communicated in the force of those four-letter words. And but what he explains in that video eloquently is that just because someone employs a four-letter word doesn't necessarily mean that it's not necessarily negative in itself to employ a four-letter word. A four-letter word can be used humorously. It can be used in situations of self-defense. And it can a four-letter word can actually be used and employed quite eloquently with a certain spirit and circumstance that's not necessarily harmful. But a four-letter or even not a four-letter word can be used as a curse word, and this is where the employment of that word or that statement or that gesture is geared in such a way that is as to inflict harm on the consciousness and emotions of another person, and thereby influence that person to both further inflict harm on themselves or others through the retroactive influences of that statement and that word. So that's a little bit of the difference between a curse word and just simply a cuss word that the YouTuber New Breed Global Truth pointed out, and I think that's a very poignant and nuanced insight for anyone who's employing language. Another thing, and this can touch on cuss words, but it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with cuss words, and that's that's a vulgarity. Like if you put if you put ketchup and mustard on a hot dog, that tastes delicious. But if you put ketchup and mustard on a chocolate chip cookie, that would be very that would be disgusting. In that, or in my opinion, to my taste, that's another thing. Taste is relative, but the idea I'm saying is that certain combinations are suitable in one context and beneficial in one context, and they might be detrimental in another context because they're not suited, or they're not it's from a different the nature of that is something out of place. So like another example would be, if if I'm with my friends and I make a joke that has rough humor, that might be hilarious, and it might even be like we might have like camaraderie and bond over it. But if I use that same rough joke around my parents, then it becomes vulgar. Not because my parents are too young, or my parents don't understand or can't appreciate the humor, but it's out of it's kind of out of place, and it's not healthy or beneficial. So I wanted to say that that's a lot of what vulgarity is, and it's not necessarily one thing can be beautiful and suitable for one context, and then if you interject it into a different context, it can be harmful, and that's just simply because it's not calibrated for the context. So what I wanted to say is that as writers and creative people, I think that if we can practice if we can practice discipline within our ordinary speech, like in challenging ourselves not to use cuss words, that challenge forces us to find other other words and other means of expressing ourselves. And in doing that, it makes us more capable and stronger communicators that helps that helps in any form of expression, whether that's creative or professional, like at work. And so I'm just putting forward and challenging people to, I by no means mean to judge or anyone or tell anyone how to talk, but I just wanted to offer that for anyone that is aspiring to or considering themselves a writer, to think critically and with discipline about how you speak. And I think that that will lend itself and give force to what you say and make you a more effective communicator. And also with all that, just to remember that our words carry a lot of impact and reverberations that we can't always see when we're invoking the words or statements. So just to be mindful and to use as much love as we can. But if to anyone who has watched this video through, I thank you for your patience and uh, taking maybe giving listening to my words as something valid when I'm talking about these very abstract and bold statements. But I think that on some level it pertains to songwriting and expression, and I hope that someone can view this and find value in these words. Peace, kind regards, and always keep developing day by day.